Nazis. You got the Aryan Brotherhood. You got the Nazi lowriders, who are basically foot soldiers for the Aryan Brotherhood. You have the Boston car, which is looked at a gang of it as its own. Even though we weren't a gang, we were looked at as a gang. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You had SAC, which is Soldiers of Aryan Culture. You had ARM, which is Aryan Resistance Movement.
Wow.
You had DWB, which is Dirty White Boys.
Yeah.
I never seen so many white gangs in my life. White dudes tatted.
Folks, got my boy Sully in the house. I know everybody's been requesting. We're gonna get into his life. Today's gonna be his life story. This is gonna be the raw deal, bro. Like, let's introduce him to the world, and we're gonna give him a warm welcome, bro. Sully, just introduce yourself. Let us know where you came from, and how your childhood was and stuff like that.
All right. Well, I just want to say what's up to everybody. People call me Sully. That's my nickname. My real name's Sean, but Sullivan stuck with me for a long time since I was a young kid. I grew up in South Boston. When I grew up there, it was an Irish ghetto. Like right now, it's one of the richest neighborhoods probably in America.
Yeah.
But when I grew up there, it was a tight-knit community. It was all Irish. Even the projects were all Irish. Like everybody knew everybody. It was rough growing up. Like we all had our trauma. We had our problems. Like, kids didn't have like the good life, like a mother and father mostly, or like, you know what I mean? That life that people come from. Like you'd be lucky if you had both. I had both, but that was because I got adopted when I was. I'm just gonna start from the beginning.
Yeah.
When I was 4 years old, my mother committed suicide, and she did this in front of me, like 2 weeks after my birthday. She was making my birthday cake. I know most of these details from being told after the fact, but I remember being 4 years old, and I remember exactly what happened. Like, my mother had mental health problems. She was a paranoid schizophrenic, so she just got out of the mental institution again, and she was fighting for all of her kids back, and she only had me and my little brother Patrick, who was a baby. I was 4, and she took a bunch of pills that they weren't supposed to give her and overdosed. But before she overdosed, she had 2 butcher knives out, and she's screaming to the ceiling, like yelling at somebody. And I got my head between her legs, and I'm like, Ma, Ma. And then she started squeezing my head. She wasn't trying to hurt me, but it was just how it was. You know what I mean? She was out of it. I'm like, Ma, you're hurting me. You're hurting me. And then all I remember after that is cops just pounding on the door. Boom, boom, boom. And they eventually kicked the fucking door in. They pulled me away from my mother. I started crying and crying and crying. And these 2 shitbag... I think this is why I hate cops from this day, right? These 2 shitbag detectives were like, you want some ice cream? And I was like, yeah, I want some ice cream. And I stopped crying, So they put me in the back seat. And these motherfuckers never got me my ice cream. They brought me straight to the hospital, right? And I never forgot that, dude. I swear to God. I'm like, where's my ice cream, motherfucker? Yeah. But when I was in the hospital, my mother probably wasn't, like, watching us closely. So, like, I remember riding my big wheel up and down the street and all that. So I probably had cuts all over me. They washed me in one of those project pools, them small little pools. They put me in there, and I remember them cleaning me up. And then the next morning, I woke up in a whole ward of children. And I remember being so hungry. I went over to this kid's high chair, and he had scrambled eggs on it. And I snatched his scrambled eggs, and I started eating it like this. And he fucking bit me right in my eye, right? and I was like, ah! So then I'm laying down in my bed with an ice pack over my head, and all I remember is my foster parents coming over me, and they're like, do you want to come back home with us? And I was like, yeah. They lived in Southie too. So I went back home with them, and all I remember after that is two DCF social workers brought me a birthday cake that my mother made for me, and me and my sister were there. So we sat on my foster mother's lap while we're in the kitchen, and these 2 DCF workers are telling us that our mother's dead, but here's your cake, happy birthday. Like, I don't know what the fuck they were thinking or what type of shit that was, but
Mm.
it wasn't done how it should have been done, you know? And I remember like not even catching what was going on, looking at the floor and thinking there was alligators on the floor, and I was laughing and shit. I don't know. I was just a kid. But when they left, me and my sister ran into my foster mom's arms, and
Mm.
we started crying. And we were like, "Is she ever coming back?" And she was like, "No." So, long story short, my cake disappeared. Right, it was
Yeah.
gone. The next day, I woke up, my cake was gone, and we had a dog, a big mutt named Blue. So I remember asking my parents where my cake was, and they told me Blue ate it. He jumped up on the counter and ate it. But I didn't find out till I was 12 years old that Blue didn't eat the cake. It was that my mother, the pills that she took to overdose, they were all sprinkled throughout the cake. So when they went to cut the cake, they seen them in there. So they don't know if my mother was going to try and take me with her or if she was just so fucked up that was an accident. You know
Mm.
what I mean? But I
Yeah.
found that out later on when I was 12 years old.
So
So
how did the like this affect you like internally? Like what was going through your mind? Like did you feel suicidal? Did you get depressed and like give up? Like kind of thing? Like what was going? Were you angry?
I miss my mother, and that was always there. Like even though I had foster parents who raised me, and to me they were my mom and dad,
Mm.
but I always had this void in my heart of something I was missing, which is that
Mm.
maternal love from my mother. That's
Mm.
why, like most of my girlfriends that I seek out, I look I look for mother qualities in a girlfriend. You
Right.
know, it
Yeah.
probably sounds a little weird, but it's the truth. That's
Mm.
what happens a lot.
Yeah.
So
It's a heavy
I,
way to start your life, bro. It's a real heavy way.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't remember being depressed or nothing because I was too young. You know what I mean? Maybe I was, maybe I wasn't. But I know that I stuttered really bad. I picked up this stutter,
Mm.
and it didn't stop till I was 14 years old. I would be like, and my foster mom used to hit me in the back of the head and be like, "Spit it the fuck out." You know what I mean? I'd be like, "Ugh." But
So it sounds like your foster parents were kind of like they were kind of mean to you. Or they what was the house like in there? Like
all right, they would. I love them more than anything in the world. They both died in 2014, and they gave me a life. Like I had great Christmases. I had great memories as a kid. Presents used to be to the sailing. We weren't rich. We were poor. My
mm,
mother went bankrupt using her credit cards to buy us like Christmas presents and everything like that. But
mm,
my mother was overly abusive with her hands. She
mm,
did beat the living shit out of us, like really bad, to the point that we were all scared of her. So like when she would go out, it would be party time because my dad was a softie. So
mm,
like all kids, like cause they used to take in foster kids all the time. So I had me and my sister, who I used to cry for every day, because all my siblings got put with another sibling except for me and Debbie. So I
mm,
cried for Debbie every day until they finally took her and brought her to me, right? So me and Debbie grew up together in a foster home, so we call each other twins,
yeah,
right? Because that's how close we are. And
right,
I had a foster brother and a foster sister. So when my mother would go out, we would all have a party, dude. Ray's living hell, like screaming, party, beating each other with pillows. My dad couldn't control us. He was like, Jesus fucking Christ, you know what I mean? But I love them both to death, dude. They gave me a life. I can't complain. She beat me, but that's how times were back then.
So you this is the beginning of the demon, bro. This is the beginning of the little demon Sully, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what was school like? What was like? Were you a little asswipe? Did you fight all the time? And
Yeah, actually, when I first went to school, I went to the Jackson Man, and there was this kid there. Rest in peace. There's a baseball field in Southie that they named after him. He was on the bus with me, and I used to look up to him. This was from first to fifth grade, and he would make me fight this other kid from Southie every day on the bus, no matter
mm,
what. Like I had to fight,
right
even
on
if
the
I
bus.
was yeah, even if I because it was crazy on the buses back in the days, dude. You know what I mean? Do
Yeah,
you remember like doing like the pencil fights? Like my
dude.
pencil snap your pencil like that. I bring it
Now
up to people. Nobody remembers that.
Dude, my bus driver used to buy me booze and cigarettes. Like for my
Yeah,
birthday, she bought me a carton of Newport. So
yeah.
the buses were a little different, yeah, especially in Massachusetts, you know.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like I used to fight every day on the bus. The bus driver never used to say nothing. So like I grew up angry with a lot of hatred
Mm,
in my heart, dude, and a lot of anger issues towards everybody in the world. You know
mm,
what I mean? When I turned 14, well, before I turned 14, when I was in 1 to 5th grade, because of my stuttering, my speech impediment, I used to have to get taken out of classes and do special like side classes with doctors,
mm.
and people would make fun of me and shit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Cause a
And
lot of
then
fights.
yeah, I get in fights over that. I just start
Mm,
swinging on people because they were trying to make fun of me like I was some weirdo who couldn't talk, and
right.
they'd make fun of my stuttering. So when I turned 14, the stuttering went away, but that's when all the trouble started. Like I started
Mm,
hanging on a corner. I started hanging with the older kids. I wanted to be the man. I used to go to keg parties and do keg stands and all that. And but then with that came getting locked up in
mm.
juvenile. You know,
Let me ask you a question real quick. And I can't wait to get into all that because that's the stuff I can relate to. But part of your story is, the thing that happened with the church. And I don't mean to bring it up if you don't want to
yeah.
talk about
No,
it. But
I'm gonna get there definitely.
okay, yeah, go ahead.
So what happened was from fifth, I ended up leaving Jackson Man School from 1st to 4th grade. From
Mm,
5th to 8th grade, I went to St. Augustine's High School. I almost skipped over that. I'm glad you reminded me.
right.
From 5th to 8th grade, I went to St. Augustine's High School. The principal there, he was a child molester. He molested good number of kids that went to that school, hundreds and hundreds, right? And I happened to be one of them. And what would happen was you'd get called down to the principal's office. He had a classroom that he turned into an office, and he had a big rug in the middle of the floor, and his windows were covered with cardboard paper, and he would lock the door. And you'd sit on the couch, and he'd sit on the chair, and his name was Mr. Doty, right? And he would start talking to you just regular, and then he would get up and get close to you and start poking at you in the chest, and he'd be like, "Oh, you're getting pretty big there, huh?" And then he'd drag you to the rug in the middle of the floor and
Mm,
start wrestling with you and start basically he was dry humping. You know what I mean? Being a fucking perv
mm.
and molesting you, right? And it got way deeper than that. I'm not gonna get into the details. You know what
Yeah,
I
you
mean?
don't have
Like
to, brother. But
everybody can understand. Like everybody knows what happened with the Catholic Church and molesting people. I just happened to be one of the people that was a
mm,
victim of that. It happened to me from 5th to 8th grade. So
mm,
every day in school, I'm sitting there scared to death if the principal's going to call me down to his office. Oh, and what he used to do after, he would take the tuition money out of the side of his desk and give us like $200-300.
what?
So, yep. So when you're in like the 5th, 6th, 7th grade and you're poor and you live in a poor Irish community and you got this guy giving you $300 after he just molested you, that was the shut up money. You know what I
Mm,
mean? That was the hush money. Like,
yeah,
hey, keep quiet about what's going on here. Don't
yeah, of
say
course.
that. Like, I didn't know this at first. Like, I didn't know what was going on. All I knew was that it was wrong. It was fucking disgusting. I didn't like it. I didn't want to be around it. I didn't want to be around him, but I didn't know what to do. And I remember one time I got into the car when my mom would wait for us because we all went to the same school. I got in the car first before all my other siblings came, and I tried to tell her that he was gay. I said, "Mom, Mr. Doty's gay." And she yelled at me and she lied and said, "He's not gay. He has a wife and kids. Why are you saying that? Blah, blah, blah." And she just made me feel like it was all my fault. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like she's not even listening to me. And I know she lied because the dude still to this day has no kids. He has no wife. We ended up suing the Catholic Church a couple years ago, and a bunch of us got 75 grand. I was one of them.
wow.
And they said in the case, what they did to him was the same thing they did with Father Gagan. He would molest thousands of kids wherever he was, and then once he would like get caught and it would get brought up, they would ship him to another state,
Mm.
and he'd be a principal of another Catholic school. Then he would do the same thing there, get shipped to another state. Because
Mm.
that's what they did with the priest Father Gagan, the one that got killed in the
Yeah, I
Max.
know about
They
him.
just sent him state to state, state to state. So unfortunately, Massachusetts is one of the only 5 states in the country that has statute of limitations on child molestation, which makes
Really?
no sense. Yeah, the laws have changed now, but for my
Yeah.
case, no. So
Mm.
this guy never went to prison, never did a day in his life in the joint. The only thing that happened was he supposedly can't work around kids no more. But if you go on his website, it says that he works in a poor black Catholic school in Cincinnati. Because like, all right, the church pays for all of my medications and all of my therapy for the rest of my life,
What's this
right?
guy's name?
Mr. Doty.
Mr. Doty. What's his
Yeah.
first name? I want to put it in class.
Paul.
Paul Doty works in
Yeah.
Cincinnati.
He's a
Yeah.
scumbag. Like,
Anybody in Cincinnati listening, dude, fucking your kid works, goes to that school.
yeah, you gotta watch out for him, dude. He's the biggest maggot piece of shit that ever
On,
walked the planet. Like me and my friend, my best friend who died, he was like my brother. We had plans. Like, you ever see the movie Sleepers?
yeah.
You know, them kids got molested in that school, and then they all grew up to be gangsters, and they went
Yep.
and killed. They went
Yep.
and killed them all.
Yep.
That's what we were gonna do. That was
Mm.
our plan. Like, we're gonna kill this motherfucker,
Yeah.
and we're gonna take all his money. When we got old enough and we realized what the fuck happened to us,
Mm.
you know what I mean? But
Mm.
it never happened. We became dope fiends, and you couldn't keep up with anything. I mean, I got 75 grand out of it. It didn't change anything. It didn't help anything. Like, I'm still fucked in the head over
Yeah.
it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I still wake up with nightmares. I still have thoughts during the day, and I just gotta like brush it off. Like, oh,
Mm.
like I don't even want to. I don't want to think about it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So I ended up going. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say moving forward, like when you're bringing all this trauma and pain with you into your everyday life. People don't even know really probably what's going on with you, but and it makes it hard to deal with somebody like a kid who's getting in trouble and got all this pain and trauma, and it's you can't even really talk about it, right? Like you feel
Exactly.
like you're bringing like violence, you're dealing with however you know how. So you started using drugs. What age were you when you started using drugs?
When I was 14, I started drinking with all the kids on the corner every weekend. We started smoking weed, taking acid, doing all that stuff at the beginning, like taking mushrooms. Then it went on to ecstasy. And then by the time I was 16, I was shooting IV heroin.
And what were you
At
doing out in the
16.
streets to support your habit and stuff like that? What were you guys robbing?
Well, at first, before that, I started getting locked up in DYS at 14. I got committed when I was 14. So I basically spent from 14 to 18 in DYS because I was constantly on the run, constantly had the AWOL team after me, never going to school, none of that shit, right? But when I first started getting high, I used to support my habit by going in like CVS with a huge bag, and I'd swipe all the Mach 3 razors in my bag, and then I would go to each bar and I'd sell them all for a fin a piece, $5,
Yep.
Or like I would go to a gas station, break in the middle of the night, get all the cartons of cigarettes and sell all the packs for $5. But it just escalated. It escalated. Like it went from that to going to Newberry Street and just doing bolt jobs with like Armani, go in the Armani exchange and just grab a pile of shirts like this and just run out and dive in the car, and everyone with you would grab their own shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then it escalated to in the middle of the night throwing a brick through like Coach. Coach? They make watches, they make bags. Throw a brick through their window, go in, smash the watch case, grab all the purses, and purses go for fucking
mad money.
Some of them $5,000, $10,000. You know what I mean? So we did all that, and then eventually, I met older guys who schooled me and told me that, listen, kid, you're 16 years old. If you rob banks, you are not going to get in any trouble if you get caught. You're such a young kid, right? Which they lied their asses off to me. That's not what happened at all.
Let me guess, they were getting a cut.
Yeah, they were hanging out. They were hanging out with me. You know what I mean?
Right.
But they're like, "Yeah, you won't get in any trouble." And I was like, "Really?" So then I met this other kid who I actually just reconnected with the other day. I haven't seen him since prison, but years ago. But
Mm,
I met this kid, and he robbed the bank, and then he told me, now it's your turn. He just
right.
spent all his money with me, right? So I was like, all right, fuck it, I'll do it. I went and I robbed the bank. Then
Mm,
he'd rob a bank. Then I'd rob a bank. And then the
mm,
bank robberies escalated. They went from passing notes to jumping counters to
yeah.
taking your own money. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Having two people going there at the same time, getting
mm,
every draw, no die packs, nothing.
mm. Did you have a
And
team, like a crew with you?
no, I didn't trust nobody. The only kid I ever trusted was that one kid that did it with me. But
Mm,
me and him were only together for like maybe 2 months. But
smart.
we went on a spree though. We robbed
Mm,
like probably 6 or 7 banks apiece each, you
mm.
know? And
That's what.
it was so bad, right? My poor mother, she went to bingo one night. I robbed a bank on Broadway because
Yeah.
everybody down the projects was all sick, right? I'm like, fuck this. I'm like, get me a napkin because I read in the James Patterson book, if
Smart.
you write on a napkin, your fingerprints won't get on it, right? So
Yeah.
I wrote, give me all the money or I'll blow your fucking head off. Hundreds, fifties, and twenties. So I go up to the bank, I pass the note, the bitch gives me the money. The guy schooled me and told me if it doesn't bend, it means there's a die pack in it. Now, this was back in the days. I
Mm,
imagine die packs are probably this big
yeah,
now.
real
You know what
fucking
I mean? So
cool.
the money wouldn't bend and it didn't click into me. And I had on the Adidas button up pants.
Mm,
And it's like America's Dumbest Criminals, right? As I walked out of the bank, I thought I was putting it in my pocket, but I put it in between two buttons. So it fell down my leg and it all fell on the sidewalk. And the kid Josh was standing right there, and I'm like, help me pick the fucking money up. And he was scared to death. So I picked it all up. I ran across the street. I almost got hit by a car. And then all of a sudden it was like, boom! Red dye everywhere, right? So I throw it all up in the air. People are diving for 20s, right? And I just
um,
run. I run past the cab that my boy's holding behind the supermarket. That was the getaway car. I used to do cabs, bikes, everything, right? So he looks at me in the cab and he sees me running. So I hopped the fence. I got in a trash pile. I laid it down on the side and I pulled
yeah.
the cover on top. And I hid in there for like an hour and a half. And then I ran to my boy's house and took a shower and changed, right? Well, my mother came home from bingo and she's like, you fucking scumbag. I can't even go to bingo without everyone telling me you robbed the fucking bank on Broadway. And I was like, Ma, I didn't rob no fucking bank. And she's like, yes, you did. And then there was another time when I came home sick and my
Yeah.
sister, I mean, I wasn't sick. I'm sorry. I came home. I had dope on me and everything. My
Yeah.
sister was sick.
Yeah.
Now, I'm like, what's wrong with you? She's like, I'm sick. I thought she was doing dope.
Yeah.
So I was like, how much you need? You know what I mean? And she's like, oh, I need a lot. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, I do OC 80s and I take like 6 of them a day, right?
Yeesh.
And I'm like, are you shitting me? So I picked up my phone off the. This is before cell phones, everything. I
Yeah.
picked the phone off the wall. I called a cab to the corner. I
Yeah.
took the cab to the parking lot. I said, wait here for me. I went up in, I robbed Mount Washington Bank. I came back out, got back in the cab, said, drive me back to the corner. Got out, went to my house, gave my sister 800, said, go get off E. Before she could go get off E, my mother comes home and she's like, can you believe it? I just went to go cash my check and some fucking scumbag robbed the bank. So it's closed. And me and her looking at each other like this, like, what the fuck? You know? But
Yeah.
if I did anything good in my life, I'll tell you one thing: it was robbing banks. I was pretty good at it. Dead
Yeah.
serious.
I mean,
Yeah,
how did you not get caught for this bank, dude?
I was just a beast, dude. I robbed banks in Quincy, West Roxbury, down. I did one in downtown Boston where I had my friends with an extra change of clothes, and I went in and robbed it. And I ran
Mm,
down, I changed my clothes, took my hat off, took my glasses off, threw that in the trash barrel, gave the money to my other friend, and we
mm,
all jumped on the train. And he sat at the very end. I sat in the middle, and the other kid sat at the other end. So if they did stop the train and grab me, I have a
mm.
total different outfit on, and I have no money on me.
Wow.
So there's nothing you can do. That was
Yeah.
how I would do it. Or I
So,
have good.
oh no, no, go ahead. My fault.
No, I'm fine.
Um, So when at what point do you end up getting in trouble, get caught, and then end up going to DYS and all that stuff?
I started going to DYS right away at 14 years old, and DYS, I don't care what anyone says, was the worst place I've ever been in my life. I've been to
Mm,
the federal pen, I've been to Shirley Max, I've been everywhere, right? There's
mm,
nothing like DYS, like, because you're the only white kid in there.
mhm,
If you're lucky, there'll be another Child Sound kid or someone that got shipped from like Worcester.
mm.
Is there, if you're lucky, there's two of you, right?
Right,
You
right,
could
right.
wear regular clothes then. My
Mm,
very first time in there, I had like four black kids come up to me and tell me to run my pants because I
wow.
had remember the swish pants, like
Yeah.
Nike and Reebok ones.
Yep, yep,
I
yep.
had the white ones on, and they wanted my pants, and there was one other kid there from Somerville, and he was respected. And I didn't know what to do. I'm not gonna lie, I was scared, dude. When I was 14, I was this big. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? I was tiny. So
yep.
like, I didn't know what to do. And that kid went over. He's like, "Leave that fucking kid alone." You know what I
Mm,
mean? But
mm,
I got jumped in so many different places. Like,
mm.
dude, it was so traumatic. Like, you ever been to Rosendale?
No, I was in the southeast region, so I went to Brockton, Rye,
Oh,
Goss,
all
Holland,
right,
all.
Rosendale had a thing where it's open showers. There's three shower heads, right?
Mm,
And then there's a little window where they can look in. So
yeah,
they tell you to strip butt naked. Now I'm 14 years old.
yeah.
Strip butt naked. They give me a bar of soap. They go in the shower, and they go turn the shower on. You turn the shower on. They go soap up. Now they're looking at you,
What?
and I got Jamal on this side and Jerome on this side, right? I hit puberty late, so I had bubble gum in the bush,
Oh
right?
man, dude.
They
Yeah,
had
you're
shit.
funny.
They had shit hanging down to their ankles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, where the fuck am I? I'm like, this is crazy. And then
Oh,
like there'd be like beefs. They'd fight each other in the shower all the time, like hood beef. And it
mm,
was that shit was traumatizing in itself. But
yeah.
yeah, I started getting locked up at 14, and it was a mess. It was in and out until I was 18.
Mm. So when you got out of DYS and you've just been through like basically World War I as a child, dude. Because I've been to
Yeah,
DYS too, so we had like the riots and the fights and the stabbings and shit, just like in prison. It's
yeah,
basically like preparation for prison.
it
So you hit
is.
the streets with that mentality, dude. Like I'm a dog, like I'm a beast.
Yeah.
And then what are you doing from there?
Well, but I stayed in DYS from 14 to 18. I got out at 18. I was still a dope fiend. I was
Mm,
robbing banks still. I ended up getting a 2.5 year sentence in South Bay House of Corrections.
mm.
So I did that. I didn't do the whole thing. I earned a little bit of good time. I think I forget. I
Would you
forget how much.
would you get the time in South Bay for real quick?
My mother set me up for going to the house and violating a restraining order. She
Mm,
knew I was homeless. She knew I was getting high. She had a restraining order on me. And I
mm,
called her and I was crying. I just wanted to take a shower and go to bed
mm.
and be with my family. And she's like,
Right.
"Yeah, come home." So when I went home, my sister was there and my mother was gone because she was up the courthouse telling on me. So
Mm.
they raided the house and my sister's holding the door shut. She's gangster, dude. She's like, "You ain't getting in there." She's fighting with them. So I ran out the back door and they were right there. They grabbed me, and I got 2.5 years, dude, for
Mm,
violation of a restraining order
mm.
at that age. That's just
Wow.
fucking ridiculous, dude.
Yeah.
I was just a dope fiend. You know what I
Mm,
mean? I wasn't John Gotti, dude. I shouldn't have got
mm,
2.5 years. I should have
right.
got like maybe 6 months, if that, because it was from
Mm,
in a program. Because
right.
that was from my mother,
Mm.
But
So what was South Bay like when you get in there? When you first get to South Bay, you walk in as a young white kid. I know that it got to be tough in there, dude. Like, did you hit
yeah,
and shit like that? What was it like?
it's a boogie down bay, dude. They get
Yeah.
it in. But
Mm,
the only thing I was lucky with was when I went to South Bay, everybody in South Boston turned into dope fiends.
mm,
So there was hundreds of us in there, right?
mm,
And we were on every single block. But we were still outnumbered by the black kids. There was still fights over the phones every day. I mean, I got knocked out cold, sleeping, had a seizure. Some dude blindsided me. Well, another white kid was fighting a black dude. There was this dude, I forget his name. He's dead now. They used to call him Debo, right? He ran outside and he didn't like the fact that there was all white kids and that there was a white dude beating up a black dude. So he found me the skinniest, youngest kid. I was 18 years old, and he suckered me, and I just went down. I had a seizure. I woke up in the infirmary. I couldn't lift my head up straight for like 2 days straight. I probably had a serious concussion. You know what I mean? Went to the hole for 30 days, came back out. But yeah, South Bay is crazy, dude.
Word, bro. I've
They
heard
call
stories.
they call it the jungle. You know what I mean? Because you got all them. See, I heard you talking about how like the Boston kids, they all have hood gangs.
Yep.
They're born into it. It's where they're from, and they got beefs with these other hoods, right?
Yep.
But then they go to prison, they become bloods, and then they bring that shit back to the neighborhood. Like in Boston, from what I've been told, from the dudes I know, they don't really respect it when the kids from Boston become bloods.
Yeah.
Because you're supposed to be all about your hood, and that's it.
Right.
You know what I mean? They become bloods. They look down on them.
Yep.
But it happened more and more. The longer I was there, a lot of Boston kids became bloods.
Almost all of them are bloods now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The way it is, dude. The gangs have taken over.
Absolutely.
What was the structure like in South Bay? Was there like shot callers and like who, like people, different cars that ran shit, or what was going on?
It wasn't like upstate or in the feds, but like you had a white phone, you had a black phone, you had a Spanish phone. But like to keep the white phone, like you'd have to come out laced up every day and hold that phone down, because if they seen any weakness or anybody that was like just leave that phone hanging there for 2 seconds, they would grab it. You know what I mean? And think that they're gonna intimidate everybody. I got into a fight over the phone with a kid before. He tried to tell me to get off the phone while I was on it. I had to tell my sister, listen, I gotta go. I hung up the phone and suckered him.
Yeah, bro. Yeah. They make it tough.
What I mean?
Bro, that's why I feel like white dudes have to go especially hard everywhere they go. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean? Yep.
It's the truth, because people underestimate us. Like, they don't realize that we grew up the same way they did. We all grew up in the projects. We all grew up in the hood. We all grew up with like crackhead mothers, or like drug addict parents, or like parents getting divorced and just going through a hard time. You know what I mean? Like even you, like I seen your video where you said you grew up in the Cape, but people don't realize there's hood parts of the Cape.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's people struggle everywhere. It doesn't matter where you're from. It's where you're at. You know what I mean?
It's this right here, bro.
Yeah. It's the truth.
Fucking so when you get out of the Bay and shit like that, you feel like a new man, or what do you feel like? What's going on?
I got out of the Bay. I had no probation, no nothing, and I obviously went right back to heroin. My mother wasn't letting me home. I had nowhere to go. I had no clothes. I had nothing. So I became a dope fiend again. I ended up back down in the projects. Like I felt happy because I was free, and I have no probation and nothing to check into. But I was also miserable because I had nowhere to live and I had nobody in my life, and everybody gave up on me by then.
What were you doing to survive?
Same stuff, robbing banks. I was robbing banks. Like they had the bank robbery task force down the projects looking for me every other day. They didn't have a warrant for me, but they would always pat me down. I'd have like $5,000 on me. They'd be like, "Oh, how do you make this money?" I used to be like, "Oh, I work in the Teamsters Union." They'd be like, "Yeah, all right, kid. You got $5,000." I'm like, "Yeah, I saved my money pretty good." You know what I mean? But I ended up getting into a fight down the projects with new kids that moved in. Like they kicked all the white kids out of the projects and moved in all minorities. That's just a matter of fact. That's what they did. It's not racist, is what happened.
Yeah.
The city did that. So like there was always beefs over that. And I got into a beef with a couple of kids who tried to jump me. My boy jumped in to help me. I ended up getting arrested. I went back to Nashua Street. Now, while I'm in Nashua Street, they tell me I got to go to the infirmary. Now, I used to always dread this. I'm like, I'm going to do a bid one day, and the feds are going to come get me. You know what I mean? They're going to get me for these banks, dude. So one day, they're like, yeah, you got to go down to the infirmary. I'm like, I didn't put in no sick slip. I'm not going to no fucking infirmary. And they're like, you got to go. And I'm like, no, I don't got to go nowhere, dude. I don't know what you're talking about. And they're like, listen, kid, you have to go. So now I'm curious. So I was like, all right, I'll go. I went down. I told this story before on the other thing, but it's part of my story, so I'm going to tell it again.
Yep.
So I go down there. There's a lady with a folder like this,
Mm.
right, like that thick, and then there's another real young dude like sitting behind her. It looked like he was in training, you know. I
Mm.
went in there and sat down. She's like, "My name's Margaret Cronin. I'm the head of the Bank Robbery Armored Truck Task Force for New England." She's like, "This is your file. We know you've robbed at least 30 banks. We're coming to indict you. If you cooperate, we'll drop it down to state. If you do really good, we might even drop it to a county jail."
Mm.
And then the reason why they were after me was because I knew of somebody who had a crew that robbed an armored truck, and
Mm.
they painted their faces black.
Mm.
And I made that comment to the wrong person.
Mm.
And that person got arrested and told the feds that I knew that information. So
Wow.
that's why they wanted me, right?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I told her, I said, "Listen, lady, I've watched too much NYPD Blue to fall for your shit." I said, "I want a fucking lawyer," right?
Yeah.
And her
Yeah.
face got beat red. She's like, "If you try to bail out here, we're gonna be at the front door to get you." And I
Mm.
ended up bailing out for 1,500, and they weren't there. I was like, "Yes." And I ended up robbing more banks, right? Because I'm like, I might as well just go hard now because they're coming to get me soon. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And sure as shit, they didn't catch me, but I knew there was a warrant out for me because they went to my house, and my dad told me over the phone. He's like, the FBI came today. He's like, they're looking for you for bank robberies.
Mm.
I'm like, damn, dude. I'm like, I want to come home, say bye to you and mom. And he's like, you can't. They're parked outside. They're probably listening to this phone call right now. Because my dad did time in federal Leavenworth military prison from when he
Wow.
was in the army.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? He had to do like 2 years there because he went AWOL. He told me don't come home, dude. So I just went on the run and kept robbing more banks. And then one day, I just couldn't do it no more. I couldn't rob banks. I couldn't get high. The shit was over, right?
Mm.
So I called my family. I told my little sister to come meet me. I gave her all my clothes that I had. I had all bad, nice hoodies, like Adidas hoodies and everything. I gave them all to her. I bought a dozen carnations, which is my mother's favorite flowers.
Mm.
Gave it to her, and then I wrote a long letter on a card for my mother saying it's not your fault. Don't blame yourself. I'm just a fuck up. Blah blah blah. I
Mm.
love you. And I went to go turn myself in. So my last meal was at Burger King, and I couldn't even eat it. So I remember I gave it to the bums because there used to be a horde of bums that
Yep.
sat in the same spot all the time. So I gave him my meal. And I went down the street, and there was a tanning salon the Charlestown people owned, and I knew someone in there. So I went in there. And I told them what was going on, and the grandmother was old school Charlestown. She was like, "Don't you give yourself up to them fucking federal agents." She's like, "Fuck them," like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Solid grandmother, like fuck the FBI, keep on the
Yeah.
run.
Yep.
So I had the girl that I know drive me to the police station, which was only 2 blocks away.
Mm.
I forgot that her boyfriend was an MBTA cop, which is like the project police,
Mm.
and he listened to the whole thing, right? So as we're driving, we pull up to the police station. I'm smoking my last cigarette. They surround the car with guns, and they're like, "Everybody, put your fucking hands up! Put your
Wow.
hands on the dashboard!" Blah blah. And this poor girl's, she's probably still traumatized from that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
They dragged me out, and then they giving each other high fives like they did something. I'm like,
Mm.
dude, I was turning myself in. Like you didn't catch me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So so the next day, Margaret came and got me. They had to bring me to the FBI building and give me the little gangster photo with the thing. You know what
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
They
Yeah.
did that, and then they fucking tried to question me again. And I said I want a lawyer. And then they still kept trying to question me. The dude, I heard the dude. He went out and got me some McDonald's. And when he came back, they were like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I got to butter this kid up in there, so maybe he can give us some information." Like I heard him say that. So when
Mm.
he came back in, I was like, "Dude, I want a fucking lawyer." You know what I mean? And I got sent to Plymouth House of Corrections, and I had to wait there, awaiting trial. They had me for 3 banks, but I ended up getting charged with 4 altogether. And what they were doing was this: they'd ask me to cooperate, I'd say no. They'd come back 6 months later and say, "Here's another bank robbery charge. We're charging you with this. Do you still want to cooperate? I said no. Then they
Mm.
come back 6 months later. Here's another bank robbery charge. They were doing like Chinese torture to me. That's what my lawyer said. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I looked up my own case law on that, and you can't do that. From what I read, if you have, if you're cops and you have evidence of a crime, you have to use that evidence immediately and arrest
Right.
that person, or
Yeah.
you have to send this directly to the grand jury and get an indictment. You
Yeah.
can't hold it back,
Yeah.
dangle it over someone's head, and
Yeah.
say, "Hey, if you don't cooperate, I'm going to charge you with this." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So we put a motion in on that, and
Right.
that's when like the feds were getting in trouble because of Whitey and shit. And
Yeah.
they were really like they were being affected for being corrupt. And so what they did was they said, we'll drop one bank, we'll sentence you on 3, and we won't charge you with any more bank robberies, and it'll
Yeah.
be over with.
Hey, Mike. So you want to turn that on? No. Do not disturb real quick.
That's what I just did.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. I'm sorry.
It's all right. I could just delete this part, or actually, I could just pause it.
Yeah, it's good now.
Okay. Hold on.
Getting 7 years in the feds,
Mm.
right? So I'm still a young kid. I'm in my early 20s by now, right? I hear all the stories. Back then, it was like Leavenworth, Lewisburg, Atlanta. Those were the hopping pens, not like the
Mm.
new ones that they got now.
Mm.
So I'm like, I'm not going to one of those. All my charges are all possession of hypodermic syringes. I had one escape, and I had like all syringe charges and all types of fucking
Drugs and shit like that.
possession of drugs, like bullshit charges. My mother's restraining order. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not going to a pen. So the day that they had me bag up and go in the paddy wagon and go to Manchester, New Hampshire to get flown out of the fucking state and go wherever you're gonna go, everyone on the van is asking the guard where they're going, and they're like, "Oh, telling them where, blah blah blah." And they told me to like ask them. I'm like, "Hey, Marshall, where am I going?" And they're like, "Lewisburg," and everyone goes, "Oh," like that, right? And I'm like, "What the fuck's the problem here?" They're like, "Ask him if it's the pen or the camp." I said, "Is it the pen or the camp?" He said, "United States Penitentiary, Lewisburg," right? And so
Mm.
everyone's trying to school me. They're like, "You're a young kid. Don't tell no one how much time you're doing. Don't talk to people. Like, stay away from gangs. Stay away from drugs. Stay away from fucking gambling," right?
Mm.
So I'm like, "Damn, dude, I'm going to fucking USP Lewisburg," right? So we take off. We're in the air. I'm scared of heights. I've never been on a plane before. I'm scared
Yeah.
of death. The wing had duct tape on it. I swear to God, on my mother, on everything I love. I don't know why it had duct tape on it, but it didn't look good to me. So I'm like, we're probably going down, right? When I first felt that turbulence, I
Yeah.
didn't know what. I thought we were going down. I'm like, holy shit, what's going on? And I'm handcuffed and shackled. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
not. The Masters probably got like parachutes and shit, so they
Right.
can jump. But we're going down with the ship.
Yeah.
So we land in MDC, Brooklyn. Now
Yep.
everyone told me that's classification, so they call the names. Everybody gets off. They don't call my name. I said, "Hey, Marshall, why didn't you call my name? There's people going to Lewisburg where I'm going, and you didn't tell me. You didn't tell me to get off with them." He's like,
Mm.
"What's your name?" I gave it to him. He's like, "Yeah, no, you're going to Oklahoma, which is the other classification." And I'm
Mm.
like, "Oklahoma?" I'm like, "What the fuck, dude? That's another 3.5 years. That's
Hours.
another
Yeah.
3.5 hours back in the sky."
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I was dripping sweat the whole time. The only good thing I remember about it is seeing the Mississippi River, like
Yeah.
out the window, like how big it was and everything. So I land in Oklahoma, instant reality check, the whole place. It's all racially segregated. I
Mm.
had to sit with all the skinheads. We all
Mm.
had to finish eating at the same time, and then we all had to like knock our table when we were getting up and we were done, like all knock it at the same
Yeah.
time. I don't
Yeah.
know why, but I just did it because that's what you had to do. You know what I mean?
Policy.
And 2 weeks later, they flew me back to Lewisburg.
Yeah.
And as I'm driving up in the bus to Lewisburg, this is like the movies, dude. Seriously.
Right.
As I'm driving up the bus, I see this big prison with the huge wall like Walpole, but it got a big smoke tower in the middle of the prison that's like
Yeah.
100 feet tall from
Yeah.
when they used to heat it with coal, you
Yeah. Yeah.
know? and everyone's like, "Oh my God, that's Lewisburg," blah blah blah, because you hear all the stories.
Yeah.
So as soon as I get off the bus, the cop's like, "Yep, we just took a body out of here yesterday," and I'm like, "What the fuck, dude?" You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Yeah.
So that was a whole nother fucking experience in itself. It was crazy.
So what's going through your mind at that time? Like you hear all the stories. They're like, oh, you get a body and all this stuff like that. Are you afraid? Do you feel nervous? Like,
I'm not scared, but I'm a little nervous because I don't know my surroundings. You know what I mean? And everything's new to me. I don't know how to move, what to do, where to go. So so when I got there, it's wide open. So how it is the blocks. It's not like Walpole. You see three separate tiers. It
yeah,
has three tiers, but
mm,
it's three floors on top of each other. Like
yeah,
you got cells on each side, and
mm-hmm,
that's the second tier. And then you go up the stairs, cells on each side, and that's the third tier. So the cop is on the first tier in his office with the wooden door closed, and
yeah,
you basically run that whole unit. You know what I mean? The
yeah,
fourth floor is the TV room. So when
mm,
I got there, the Boston guy sent someone in to tell me to fucking come out to the yard. So I come out to the yard. They asked me who I am. There's older, salty guys there. But I was lucky. My buddy that I robbed the banks with, back and forth, he was there. Me and him were going to take a train all the way across the country, rob a
yeah,
bank in every state, and
yeah,
land on the West Coast, right?
yeah, yeah,
He did it. Like legit, he did it. Like I never did it, but I seen him. He had a Washington number. The Boston number was 038. The last three numbers, if you're from
okay,
Mass,
yeah, yeah,
038.
yeah,
He
yeah,
had a different number. I'm like, what happened to you? He's like, I did what we said we were gonna do. He's like, I robbed every bank in every state, and I ended up in fucking Washington shooting crystal meth. That was before we even knew what meth was.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean?
oh,
So he vouched for me. I obviously had to get my paperwork, which
right, right,
came in like I don't know if it was a week or 2 weeks or whatever, but I got it.
mm,
But he vouched for me ahead of that. He's like, I know the kid solid. He did time with me. He robbed banks with me. He never told on me. You
mm-hmm,
know, blah blah
mm-hmm,
blah. So I was all set there. But the prison was a violent joint. It wasn't violent where shit happened every day, but
mm,
it was really, really dangerous to the point of when it did happen, motherfuckers get killed. Like
yeah,
there was a saying in there. If you look up, they have a documentary on Lewisburg. HBO did it. It's
mm,
called "Doing Time in the Big House."
mm,
If you look that up at the beginning, the captain's getting questioned by the camera crew, and he's showing them knives this big, right? And he told them, he said, "There's no fist fights in the penitentiary. If
mm,
you're gonna go to if you're gonna go to that means, you're gonna choose the weapon of your choice." And they're
mm,
like, hold up. You mean to tell me that what do you mean there's no fist fights?" He's like, exactly what I said. If you're gonna go to the manor to where violence is gonna happen, each person's gonna choose their knife and they're gonna go at it. And for the most part, that's how it went. Like there
mm,
was a few fights, you know what I mean? But people got stabbed, dude, or people got hit with locks and socks, or
right,
people got fucking hit with a pipe or whatever, because they
mm,
had all the factories over there. They had a metal factory, so we didn't even have to cut knives there. They had a metal
mm.
factory. That's where we got all our knives from.
And they could make knives in the metal factory, not the car.
Yeah,
What did you
yep.
make them out of? How'd they make them?
I never was over there. I
Okay,
just got the knives. I used to always like the picks. I like the picks. Because
yeah,
someone told me if you stab someone with a pick, you can hit their internal organs and they can bleed out on the inside and you would
yeah,
never know. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
I just like the picks. But they had all different types too. Same as in the Max. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
right, 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 right.
But it just came from a metal shop. I don't
Mm,
know how or why they would ever have a metal shop in a prison like Lewisburg. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
If you look at it, you would think it's like a sweet camp because it was a sweet camp for a penitentiary. Because in the yard they had two tennis courts, two
mm,
handball courts, a bocce ball court, a
wow,
football field, a softball field, a soccer field, a big track to run on, a little track to run on, and a weight pit.
yeah.
So
Did they
like,
have like did they have like leagues and stuff like that where it was
yeah,
like
I played in everything. I was in amazing shape then, right? All I
yeah,
did was work out Monday through Friday. I
mm,
ran 14 miles 3 times a week. I played softball for the Boston Bandits, which that's
wow,
what the Boston guys are called.
Yeah.
B League softball. A League softball was like professional. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I played B League basketball for
Wow.
we had the Celtics jerseys,
Yeah.
and you could turn them inside out and everything. I played for the Celtics. I played every sport you could possibly play, just
Yeah.
to fucking try and stay out of trouble, and I still
Yeah.
couldn't do that.
And just
I
to
ended up,
vouch for you real quick, I used to watch you play basketball. You're pretty good.
yeah, thank you. Yeah,
For real.
I was all right. Yeah, that's true. I was all right, but like that place was nuts.
What was like the racial segregation like there? So like
Oh,
you had the whites, the blacks, and the Spanish. Was there DC blacks? Was there like Boston whites? Was there Nazi lowriders and Aryan Brotherhoods and all that?
there was all that because when I got there, Marion was like the ADX at the time, right?
Mm,
Marion closed. So when Marion closed, we got all the gangbangers and all the killers and all the people that were stabbing people from Marion to Lewisburg. So
mm,
Lewisburg started rocking again. It started jumping again, right?
yeah,
And you had the Mexican Mafia, which are serious ass motherfuckers. They only
mm,
run with the Serenos
mm,
and the Aryan Brotherhood. They're allied with the ABs. You got
mm,
the Aryan Brotherhood. You got the Nazi lowriders, who are basically foot soldiers for the Aryan Brotherhood.
mm,
You have the Boston car, which is looked at a gang of it as its own. Even though we weren't a gang, we were looked at as a gang. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yep,
You had SAC, which is Soldiers of Aryan Culture. You
mm,
had ARM, which is Aryan Resistance Movement. You
wow,
had DWB, which is Dirty White Boys.
yeah,
I never seen so many white gangs in my
yeah,
life. White dudes tatted from head to toe, their
yeah.
whole face, fucking Hitler tatted on all of them and shit. It was
What,
just crazy.
did they get along? How did they like maneuver?
Well, the way it goes is it went a while before an Aryan Brotherhood was put on a yard because
Mm,
in '97 they got word from ADX to go to war with DC, and they
mm,
picked blocks A and B for AB, and
yeah,
they decapitated one dude, they killed another, and then they stabbed two other like 70 times, and they lived, right.
mm,
So the ABs were locked down nationwide on RICO and a racketeering indictment. They were trying to give them all the death penalty.
mm,
They wrapped that up while I was in Lewisburg, and they all just got life sentences again.
mm,
So Bobby Ray hit my yard. He was the first AB guy I ever met. It takes one to hit that yard to make everybody act accordingly.
mm,
Like there was a white dude, an HA, Danny Byfield. He's a serious dude, but
mm,
he was working out with a black guy.
mm,
So Bobby Ray went up to him with two Nazi lowriders and told him, "If we come out here tomorrow and you're working out with him, we're gonna kill you."
mm.
And it's that
And,
simple.
and does this one so like if one AB hits the yard, do like the dirty white boys and the Nazi lowriders and the sack guys, do they all go underneath him and
They
listen to
go
him?
underneath, yup. Everybody falls underneath them automatically. Like they're looked at like gods in federal prison. They
Mm,
really are. I imagine it's like that in California too. The
mm,
federal pens have ran how California prisoners ran, from what I'm told. You know what
mm,
I mean? Because you got the two top dogs, Mexican Mafia and the Aryan Brotherhood. They
mm,
kill for each other. They're allies. And
mm,
then you got like the Mexican Mafia got the Serenos. There's a million of those. So that's their foot soldiers.
mm,
The ABs and the feds used to use the dirty white boys. Then they started using the Nazi lowriders. And then they started using SAC,
mm.
Soldiers of Aryan Culture, because them kids got it in.
Yeah, I
But
heard.
Boston guys, for the most part, didn't join gangs, but there was a couple Boston ABs.
Mm,
There were serious motherfuckers, and
mm,
they had the keys to the whole East Coast.
mm.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I do. And
So that,
so did I'm sorry, they have drugs and stuff like that inside that prison? Were
yeah.
they allowed to use them and stuff?
Well, see, me, when I was in the feds, it wasn't like how I was in the max, dude. I didn't get high
Mm,
because I didn't want, like, I've seen people get killed over one stamp. So
mm,
I didn't want to run up a drug debt, a fucking gambling debt, or nothing because, like, I've seen them. If they think you have money, they'll let you run a $500 freeze out your first night, meaning they'll let you gamble up to $500, and if you lose, you have to pay the 500 before you can put another bet in. Some
mm,
dudes put thousands on the games. You know what I mean?
mm,
And same thing with dope. Like if they see you got money and you keep coming back to them, they'll eventually let you run up $1,200 dope bills.
Mm.
and then these dudes end up getting killed over fucking not being able to pay for getting high. So they
Yeah.
had heroin up there. They had black tar. Um, I don't know how the ABs were about getting high and not getting high. For the most part, from what I heard, they all get high. They just like everybody else. You know what
Right.
I
Right.
mean?
Right. Right.
They just they're just a bunch of serious ass killers. To
Right.
be in the Aryan Brotherhood, you have to kill in the joint.
Mm.
So every single AB member has a body in prison. Think of
Mm.
that.
What
That's how
about
they
these?
stay elite.
What about these dudes out here that talk about I owe a body for like?
Well, all right. What? Who said that? The fake ones in the
Yeah,
Mac?
it's like dudes that I've run into over the years.
Yeah.
Like I'm an AB, but I owe a body. It's like yeah.
No. First off, the books ain't even open in Massachusetts, so they're not
Mm.
even allowed to put anyone down in Mass. I know
Mm.
that for a fact because I got close with Bobby Ray. Bobby Ray liked me because I got in a bunch of incidents where I used weapons against black dudes, and I
Mm.
had to, and I didn't
Mm.
ask nobody for help. And I
Mm.
picked up cases and everything, and he liked that in me, so he would hang around me. When I got my Shamrock, Boulderhead, who was a Nazi lowrider, wanted to be AB. He can't. He's like, "What the fuck you got that for?" And I immediately squared up. I'm like, "Cause I'm Irish. That's why. What's up?" And
Mm.
Bobby Ray got in the middle and was like, "No, no, no." He's like, "That's the best tattoo in the yard." He's like, "Who gave it to you?" I'm like, "Tommy Vargas." He's like, "Tell him I want one." You know.
Yeah.
But what was the question you asked me?
Just about the Owen bodies, but let's talk.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can tell you about that real quick. From what I've heard in the feds, because they brought the death penalty back,
Mm.
if you're already doing life and you have to kill, they don't make you kill up front no more. You
Mm.
do owe a body, but when that time comes, you have to do it or you're
Right.
going to get green lighted and they're going to kill you. And
Right.
that's only because of the death penalty,
Mm.
because they would never survive.
Right.
Everybody would kill someone and then
And
they
then
would go to death row.
right.
You
Right.
know what
Right.
I mean? And there would be no Aryan Brotherhood. So they
Right.
had to change the rules a little bit. But like, if you're in there and you're doing 10 years and you want to be an AB, you go kill. You're not going to get the death penalty.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Really. Really. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So they could because they still have the option to give you a life sentence.
Exactly.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. And people are doing life doing 10 years. They'll go do that to get down with it and shit.
I was told there was a kid when they did the thing in '97 on A and B block. There was a kid that had 6 months to go home, and he wanted to be AB more than anything. And
Yeah.
he was like 27 or whatever. And they
Yeah.
told him like, "No, you're more better to us on the street than you are in here." And he's like, "Nope, I want to do this. I want to be brand." That's what they call themselves, the brand. They're
Mm.
like, "I want to be brand," and so they let him go. And then I guess his mother came up to pick him up like 6 months later, and they're like, "Dude, he's in on a double homicide with 4 attempted homicides."
Wow.
You know what
Dude,
I
you went
mean?
crazy, huh? Jeez.
Yeah, he's never going home ever again.
So let's talk about. You said that you had been involved in a couple of instances or several instances where you had to use weapons on black dudes and stuff like that. And not to like say like, oh, it's because it's black, but in there, it's like when you're getting
It's
into
racial, yeah.
very racial. So just let's talk about some of these fights that you got into.
All right. Well, the first thing that happened to me was the DC blacks were there. They're called the DC car, but they're
Mhm.
basically a gang. I don't care what the fuck they say. They're a gang, and they're all booty bandits.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but like the
Mm.
majority of them are booty bandits. That's someone that either just fucks punks and gets off that way, or they rape motherfuckers. You know what I
Right.
mean? And they
Yeah.
call them boys. So
Mm.
there was one that called me a boy. He asked me if I was a boy. Because remember,
Mm.
I'm in my early 20s. I'm working out. I'm ripped up. You know what I mean? This
Mm.
dude's probably all creeped out. Like, yeah, I want this little white boy. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's like, "Are you a boy?" And I'm like, there was more words than that went back and forth. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm a boy." I was like, "I'll be right back." And I had to go get my knife. And I didn't try and kill the dude, but I stabbed him 3 times in his stomach. And
Mm.
he went running, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I just left it at that because I wasn't trying to catch a body,
Right.
but I
Right.
had to make a statement. And I didn't want to ask anybody for help because that would make me look weak. So I
Mm.
didn't tell none of the Boston guys I was going to do it.
Mm.
So I went to the shoe for 18 months. Back then, they had a pilot program, which meant if you caught something like that, because Marion closed. They would keep you in the shoe for a year or more. If you caught a ticket, your year started over in the shoe. And after your time was up, you could either get put back out on that compound or get shipped to another one. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
always had the Boston homeboys vouching for me, so I came back out. When I came back out, there was another dude, a Nation of Islam dude, and he started talking shit about white people, and I'm like, dude, you have colored eyes, and you're in the Nation of Islam. You obviously have Caucasian flowing through your veins, you know. And
Right.
he didn't like that, so he called me a punk, a bitch, everything. Right? He was 6'4". The kid was big, and I was like, all right, whatever, you got that, you know. He left. He went up to the gym. He was bragging in the gym the whole time. Now, the way the feds are is every hour there's a 10-minute move. So, like, it's 7:20, every door will open up in the whole prison, right? And that means anybody can move anywhere they want, to the library, to the gym, to the chapel, to the yard, to the weight room. Wherever you're going, you go. And then the door is shut. And then next hour, they open up again for another 10 minutes. So this kid, I know he's off the block. I know he's coming back. I know I got to do something, right? So I took 2 locks and I tied them in a sock in a nice big knot. I put that in my sweatpants. And then I took the Taster's Choice mugs. They used to be like the coffee mugs they used to give you, the white ones that say Nescafe on them. And I filled that with the spigot, 190, and then I put it in the microwave for 10 minutes. So I'd stand in the hallway, every movement with this cup going, like steaming. And like all the black dudes I'm cool with, because I play basketball and everything, you know. They're like, yo, Sully, what you doing, man? I'm like, nothing, just drinking a cup of coffee, you know. And I'm waiting for this dude every movement. He doesn't come back. Now, you know how you get the butterflies, your chest is going. I'm like, damn, dude, I just want to get this over with, right? And I'm like, I can't tell no one, so I'm hoping that there's no other Nation of Islams around when I do this, because then I could get jumped. I could get stabbed. You know what I mean? Long story short, the dude came back at the very last count. He had to come back, which was 8:20 at night. I knew he was coming back. I heard his big mouth when he was downstairs. As soon as he came up, he froze. He was like a deer in headlights. And I knew I got him, dude. I just knew it. I threw that cup in his face, burnt his whole face. He was like, ah. He starts running down the stairs. I pull out the locker in the sock. I hit him. Every time I hit him, he's splitting. He runs through movement with all these thousands of people moving through the hallway, through movement onto another block. We're not supposed to go on other blocks. So the guy tried to stop me. He's like, hey, at our block. Because they stand at metal detectors that got tables on them. So you take your headphones off and you slide it over to the table, and then you go through the metal detector and grab it. You know what I mean? And that's at every single door to every block. So you can't get knives out, but we still did. So I just swung the fucking lock at the cop. I'm like, fuck this dude. He's not stopping me. I swung it at him, and he moved right out of the way. I ran over. I hit the kid one time. Boom. And then he fell on the stairs, and I just grabbed his hair, and I just started suckering him. And then I got so tired because it took so long for the fucking team to come. I was like this. You know what I mean? I'm like, please come. I can't even fucking move anymore, because if this kid gets up, I'm done. Because he's big. You know what I mean? So they end up grabbing me, and they bring me down. They find out he's a Muslim. They make a big deal about it because it's white and Muslim, because there was a race war in Lewisburg before between the whites and the Muslims. You know what I mean?
You know a lot about that race war?
Well, that was from what I was told. Like, I used to ask all the older guys, like, all the stories from back in the days. I ended up moving to A block, which is one of the most famous blocks where all the murders happened. And when the ABs were going to trial and they were trying to give them the death penalty, the prosecutor and shit came on my tail when I was cleaning my cell. I guess it happened in the cell 2 down from me. But what was the question again? I'm sorry.
About the race war.
All right. So what happened was there was a white kid who was in there for burning down black churches. So the dirty white boys brought him in, right? And they're trying to make him a DWB. He ends up having a falling out with them, and he becomes a Muslim. The Muslims will accept anybody. They'll accept rapists, rats, child molesters. I don't mean all Muslims. I mean
Right,
Muslims
right,
in Lewisburg at that time. You know,
right, right,
they
right,
would
right.
accept anybody. So this kid became a Muslim. So I guess a dirty white boy and a skinhead went in his cell, stabbed him up, killed him, threw a dummy knife on the floor, and
Mm,
tried to claim like self defense. That's big in the feds. They're big
right,
on going in cells,
mm,
stabbing dudes, and either hitting themselves up and throwing the knife
mm,
or just throwing the knife. You know what I
mm,
mean? And saying, hey, he had a knife too. It was either me or him. Like
mm.
Dave Weichel and Frank Huggins, that happened in the cell. Weichel still got parole. You
Yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
dude, that
So
shit was vicious, dude.
yeah, I heard,
Yeah.
and Frank's a big motherfucker.
Dude, he's a savage, bro.
I'd be
That guy
scared.
be fucking jumping. He got jumped by like four dudes and wiped them all down.
Dave got him good though. I heard.
Yeah, he got him in the arm, hit his artery, and he stabbed him a few times, which were lethal stab wounds. But the dude Frankie got on top of him. I guess just beat him until he was
Yeah,
unconscious and just kept on going until his blood was
yeah.
gone. But there was so much blood, like I guess the blood was pooling outside the door, like it was crazy.
Well,
But yeah,
Dave supposedly walked off the block. Frank left on a stretcher.
yeah, because he was almost dead. He was
Yeah,
almost dead.
well, in the feds, the big thing is this: if you get stabbed, motherfuckers try and walk off that compound. Because
Mm,
if you walk off that compound, it means that dude didn't put in enough work.
right, right,
It
right,
means you're the
right,
man. Even though you just got
right.
stabbed up, you
Mm,
still get your respect because you walked
yeah,
off that compound.
word,
You know
bro.
what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So when they killed the white Muslim, there was retaliation, obviously, right?
Mm,
But what happened was the black Muslims, when it came off of lockdown, they just picked any old white dude. This dude called Tennessee, from what I was told. And there
mm,
was like 12 black dudes, and they got him in the stairs, and they fucking butchered this dude and killed him.
mm.
But
Wow.
like, they weren't playing the game fair. Like, they didn't go after any ABs. They didn't go
Mm,
after any gang members. They didn't
mm.
go after anyone that puts that work in with that knife. They went
Right.
after just some guy,
Yeah.
Tennessee, was probably like 50 years old. So then when they came back out on lockdown, the whites would go get another black guy. And it went back and forth like that for like 2 years, from what I was told. And what
Mm,
I was told was this: you can have weight belts up there for the weight pile, and they make them in the leather shop. So people would hang their weight belts on the hook right by the front of their cell, and they'd put a stack of magazines right there. So what
mm.
they would do was they'd
Yeah.
stick the magazines all the way around, then they'd put the weight belt on, and then they'd take a towel and they'd put it in their shirt and tuck it in,
Mm.
and then you get your knife and you're ready for war. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's fucking gladiator shit,
Yeah.
dude. That's
I've seen
crazy.
people do it in the max. I mean, yeah, when it gets crazy, it's like that's what you got to do: protect your neck, protect your chest.
Yeah,
But yo,
absolutely.
Sully, we're like at an hour and 10 minutes, and
We,
I want people to hear your whole story because your stories just gets crazier and crazier as we go on. Do you want to finish it tomorrow during the live?
absolutely.
All right, cool. Tomorrow.
Because I still got to tell the whole state prison and
Yep.
all that.
Yep. Fact. We'll get into the tomorrow. We're gonna hit, the rest of we'll finish up the feds and then we'll hit the state. And dude, I've heard your story and I've been with you, so I know your story is just insane, bro. Like we haven't even hit the hard points yet, dude. This shit gets
Yeah,
crazy, bro. So yeah, I'm excited. This live is gonna be cool tomorrow. I appreciate you coming on today. I'm gonna
absolutely.
edit this up tonight and get this shit out there, bro. Let the world know who Sully is, and we're gonna hit that shit tomorrow, bro.
All
So what
right.
time you want to do it tomorrow, Sully?
Anytime, whatever
Okay,
you want.
anytime. All right, I'll send you a text and we'll get this shit popping.
All right, bro. I
All right,
love
bro.
you.
Love you, boyo.
Love you, bro.
W number out. All right, brother.